Welcome back, everyone. It is Tuesday for our Tuesday talk with the one and only Brannon Potts from B2R Investing. So, morning, man.
Morning. How are you?
Good, good. This is our regular Tuesday talk now, so I love it. Yeah, I think we're always digging for new ideas or new topics to discuss. This week was a little bit more challenging, I think, but I did find one that we can dig into initially.
Yeah.
So this one I saw on X, posted by Alex Hormozy. So let's dig into this. And it says, poor people stay poor because they want a fast way to get rich, right? So do you have any thoughts on that post by Alex Hormozy?
Oh, yeah. I kind of wrote down some notes and, thinking about that. And I bet you many of us can feel there was a time in our lives where we felt poor and we're kind of in that stage of, I don't know, call it desperation, and you're trying to figure it out. It happens at certain times, early, and at least it happened in my life. And you think about, um, if I was in that situation, thinking back, and if I were to have, let's just use win the lottery. So I win $1 million when I was in that situation. What really happens is, because at that moment, you don't even know how to handle money. And I would have absolutely been a horrible steward of $1 million. Now, because I've learned the disciplines over time, if not that I play the lottery, so don't think that, but if I were to win the lottery today, I know exactly what I would do that with that money, and I would grow it. When your most influence is when you're desperate, and your emotions can lie to you. And so in that situation, when you're desperate, wanting to be rich, your emotions lie to you, and you're more easily influenced, and truth and substance don't, you're not thinking about it. You're just thinking of emotion of, I want to be rich.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So we'll say good morning to Yasik from New Jersey, Jeff from York, Pennsylvania, and Yasik does say magic pill doesn't exist, unfortunately. So yeah, I think I totally agree with that, right? I think we've all been through it, right? If we were given
Yeah.
money at a younger age, we
None of us are trust fund babies. We all can understand, and that's the beauty of this community. We can remember when we were hungry. We just channeled it over time. Not saying instantly. We channeled it right over time.
let's see, we got Yasik also says statistics don't lie about lottery winners going broke all the time. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
The story on that too. There was a story, and I think Cody Sanchez mentioned it the other day, but I was aware of the story. Remember the guy? There's been several even stories, news things about him. This was in the early 2000s. His name was David Edwards. He wins $27 million out of Kentucky. And within a decade, he lost every penny, and he was living in a storage unit 10 years later after winning $27 million.
27 storage. Well, okay. I get it is possible, right? I guess
He
it's
went from 27 million to nothing in 10 years.
yeah. I mean, that sounds quite a bit like a lot of athletes, right? They
Yeah.
retire, and they haven't really, they don't have that financial literacy that we're all trying to pick up on and learn, and it's not just presented out there, right? They don't teach it in schools, so it is definitely easy to spend that money and not realize that you have property taxes, you have insurance, right? You go buy a property with cash, but you still have other bills to pay, maintenance, right? So sometimes they overextend themselves and don't realize that there's other bills coming down the road. But do you think maybe impatience or is part of the issue, or is it kind of just there's no plan there? So
Yeah, I think it's all of that. It's impatience, it's having no financial literacy. It's I used this before in our videos, the Veruca principle. I want it and I want it now. And in truth, where we learn is it, I think it happens when you're learning financial literacy and what are the appropriate uses of money and how to be a good steward of it. It happens slowly, and then all of a sudden it happens suddenly. I think it's slowly, then suddenly, when we learn that financial literacy, because we understand that when we don't have financial literacy, when we see money as a place just to buy things and consumerism, versus when we start to have financial literacy is when we understand money can be used as a tool to build capital and to build assets. But that happens over time. And if somebody were just instantly poof to get that money, they haven't had the time and the discipline to know how to use it appropriately. They would use it as a source of buying things, doodads.
I also see there's like a difficult balance there, right? Because I think kind of in our community also, we're always telling people to take action, and do the work. So sometimes there's that balance of we're trying to do the work and we get impatient, and is it, but in the back of our mind, we're almost thinking like you're being punished for being patient to some extent, I think, by not taking action, right? So it is difficult to, I think, decipher, especially when you're getting started, and that is a challenge.
To find the balance of pulling the trigger on
Yeah.
on an opportunity versus being so impatient you compromise just because you want a deal. Let's just say that a real estate property, and then you bought something that was, you didn't underwrite it right, and it ends up being an alligator or something negative cash flow just because you were so impatient. Hitting that right balance of when to pull the trigger and when to wait for the right deal.
We got the one and only Dion Talk
Yeah.
Financial Freedom tuning in. So thanks for tuning in. That probably means
Thanks, Dion.
Dion will be going live soon. So he's probably checking in to see if we're live, and he'll probably be going live shortly. So go check out that. And Dion will be on Thursday. We're going to be digging in with Kyle Dorn again, about our previous live stream about his living expense and reaching his retirement and financial freedom. So there's got a lot of pushback and a lot of people messaging me after. And what I'll say is Kyle does have his receipts, so we'll bring it. We'll bring it on
That's awesome.
Thursday and break it down. So thanks for tuning in, Dion. I'll see you on Thursday. And Dion will be going live today, I believe, at 4 p.m. Pacific. So I'm sure everyone knows about that, but tune in for that. And yeah, let's get back to kind of what we're talking about today. I'll just show it again on the screen so if people are tuning in and haven't seen. But Alex Hormozy, posted something on X talking about poor people stay poor because they want a fast way to get rich, right? And I think we've all been there, especially in our younger days. I think, me and Brannon are, I had Cody Davis on yesterday, so he's definitely on the younger end of the spectrum. But
He got there faster than me, I'll say that.
yeah. So, okay, to that point though, let's maybe dig into that also, right? Like you said, he got there a lot quicker. He did, if you ask him, he probably would say that he went faster than maybe he should, right? He kind of didn't have the patience and he was jumping into a lot of deals, like no loans, maybe, seller finance. So how would we tell others out there or advise others when you see someone like Cody Davis who, like you said, reached it a lot quicker than we have possibly?
Man, I haven't spent a lot of time thinking on exactly what that advice would be, because it seems to me that Cody had a good head on his shoulders. And even though he made some mistakes, he definitely had self reflection and learned quickly. And I think he might have had some good mentors, even on the early end. He's gone through a few mentors, it sounds like, but he had some good mentors to it that helped him learn. And we've talked about this before. Getting into the game, even though maybe it's a base hit, getting into the game can be a home run based off of learning from it, of what to do on the next action steps. And you can still learn even on multiple buys in, you're still learning. I feel like my second build, I'm going to share this in February. I've got some learning that I had, some heavy learning in the second build that creates what I'm doing now that much better, but I was able to learn from it. It wasn't fatal mistakes. They weren't complete catastrophic failures, but there were some little errors that I'm making better decisions now. And I think Cody has done that too. It sounds like from those interviews, he had some things he would do definitely differently, but they weren't fatal mistakes. And that's making him a better operator today and as successful as he is now.
I totally agree. I think that's the one thing that I really enjoyed when I first met Cody a few years ago. He was out in Hawaii. His wife's from out here. We had coffee, but yeah, you definitely get that sense of he's thinking, 20 years down the road also,
He
right?
is.
So he is moving fast and taking action, but there's also a lot of patience in his plan, and that's kind of what I pick up from when I do discuss things with him. And it's super unique, like you're saying, at his age, it is very unique
He's got
speaking.
a unique story. And my intent is with him, I've shared before, I'm going to be teaching financial literacy to the high school seniors this year in April or March. It was April last year. The plan is to coordinate with him being the final day on that Friday, do a quick Zoom call with him to introduce him to those seniors in high school, to say, hey, here's somebody closer to y'all's age, and it can be done. And I'm hoping he'll say yes. I believe there's a good chance he will, but because he wants to make an impact too. But I'm going to introduce him to the senior class. I'm now teaching at two separate high schools to the senior class on financial literacy. And he's going to be a great example. The kid, Cody looks 16. I'm sorry, he does to me. And I love that because he's going to be relatable to those 18, 19-year-olds, that he looks close to their age and be able to put it together that, hey, I made some good financial decisions, some good stewardship decisions of not blowing all my money. So he's going to be one of my that capstone Friday is trying to coordinate a Zoom call with him for the class.
Yeah, Cody is definitely out there to help people. I definitely picked that up from him. He's very genuine. He's like you mentioned, so he is my regular on Monday now. Me and Cody are collaborating on Monday mornings, and me and Brannon are doing something on Tuesday. And like I think Harrison, Trade Better 99, thanks for tuning in. But he says, yeah, his favorite Tuesday morning show. So thanks, man. Thanks for tuning
Thank
in.
you for that compliment.
We also have Jack tuning in. Jack was actually doing some work on one of my Pittsburgh properties this week. So Jack, get going on that, please. But Lynn's here tuning in this morning. Thanks, Lynn. And also, I do want to let's put this out there. So this was I do have that post from Alex Hormozy, right? So I always like going through the comments to see kind of different different points of things. But this individual replied to that post and said, "Easy to preach patience when you're not choosing between rent and food. People sprint because the ground under them is burning. Wealth buys time, poverty steals it." You have any thoughts on that?
I understand when you're in desperation. I've been in desperation too, and you've got to figure out how to work your way out of it and overcome your emotions of desperation with logic of how to get out of it without hurting yourself that much further.
Brandon's busy at work today. He's here
Yeah,
all
I've
the
got
day.
somebody coming in the door.
Yeah, I definitely, yeah, I know, sometimes people, when they're in bad situations, sometimes they're going to do things that, it's just, they have to do it. They don't have any other options, right? And hopefully that's what people realize is that, especially when you're younger, don't get yourself into these possible positions where you have to just be in a rush to do certain things and have to act a certain way, right? So, I think a lot of that is it's so easy to jump in and, when you're younger and get yourself into debt, get yourself into these positions, spend, like you're saying, buy all the new toys, spend all the money, and then now you found yourself and you've created this big wheel, like this rat, like Zuber talks about, right? The rat race and what kind of wheel you've created for yourself, and now you're in a position. And I keep bringing it up also is like the government shutdown, for example, right? They've cut it's every year they're talking about a government shutdown, right? And yet people are still living paycheck to paycheck. And when that time comes, now they're complaining about the government shutdown. They're not in a position to really protect themselves, right? And but it's out there, right? Every year they talk about the shutdown. Let's see. There was a question for you though. Let's get to this real quick. Trey Better 99 says, Brandon, would you do a written curriculum for your class?
I have it. I do. I've got it all written out. It's actually, if I can get this book finished in the next year or so or two, it's talking about the 4 pillars. So I'm going to talk about budget as pillar number 1, of how to live below your means. And then that's the first day of talking about budgeting. And it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep, and then what you do with it. The second day is buying assets, not liabilities, and not living in the middle class consumer trap. Day 3, I'm going to be talking about investing using healthy leverage and what the power of magnified returns with good leverage is. And then number 4, the pillar 4 is building from there and how to hold your money accountable. And then the 5th day is that kind of that capstone of maybe interviewing Cody and talking about making it a reality at a young age.
I see Jack's message. Thanks, Jack. He's letting me know that the car that was in the way at one of my units was the electrician's. So thank you. He does say that bell going off is every time Brannon makes a good nugget of wisdom. So that's the alarm.
I don't know if
going off.
I don't think I got a lot of wisdom, but I got a lot of words.
But Dion does say self-help books, religion, and investing can be summed up in 2 words: prioritize later.
Gotcha. Hopefully it's not too late.
And then it pushes Brandon's button a little bit. But yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people just put it on the back burner, and there's this, but that I think that also comes down to, like you said, what kind of wheel you've created, right? So if you have so many other things, your rat race, you're caught up in the rat race, these things are put on the back burner and you prioritize it later. Like a lot of people, even health, right? It gets put on the back burner because you created this life for yourself where you have all these bills that you do need to pay. And like I said, on Thursday, we're going to have Kyle Dorn back on, and he's created a wheel for himself that is very, very small and, very minimal lifestyle. And he's happy with that, but he's definitely, it's easy for him to walk away from what he's doing out there. Hey, Hugo, stay winning wealth. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being on Saturday with Lead Pray Huddle Nick, talking about Bitcoin. So that was a good episode. Let's see here. What else we got in the chat? Hey, Josh is here. Morning. Jason, I see Jason. Thanks for tuning in. And there's Christian from your channel that's making.
I don't know. He just keeps doing symbols. So I don't know what he's doing.
Well, we do like the support. So thanks for tuning in.
Yeah.
But let's see what else. Let me see what other comments were on that post by Alex Hormozy. The irony is that the fast way is always the slowest.
That's, I think of the fast way. You're thinking of that commercial. What was it, the Staples commercial, the easy button? And everybody wants the easy button. Well, it's that magic shortcut, the magic shortcut to success end up being a trap. I have found that. I have experienced it. We all struggle with little magic shortcuts, and you find out they end up being a trap. And so I realize that anything that's of value, it takes time and self-discipline. And you actually enjoy that reward that much more because there was some, if you want to call it, sacrifice to get there. Learning, and what you learned in the journey is sometimes worth as much as what you get at the end.
Do you think social media has made long-term patience impossible for the average investor?
I do. No, I can see it in myself. I can see it in my, kids and other people. They want instant gratification, and the attention has gone from, years ago it was long, long time. Then it went down to TV, reducing our attention span. Then it went into social media, reducing it even less than a minute. Now you're looking at shorts. You're looking at, if you don't capture the attention in 3 seconds, you've lost them. And they want it all instantly. And they don't want to deep dive. And I think there's a group of us, what Dion talks about, that YouTube university. I use that language among adults and kids. I want the deep dives because then I have time to think about it and to analyze it. When we want instant, quick responses, we tend to make worse decisions. Anybody that's, let's just go to selling us something and say, I want you to make the decision now because this is a great opportunity. Make the decision right now. The quicker they want you to have the decision, the worse that decision is, and to run from it. That's what I believe.
Yeah. Oh, Lynn has a great question, but let's get to Harrison had his first. So let's get Harrison's out. This is actually a follow-up from last week that we didn't have time to get to. So Brandon, follow-up question from last week. How was your faith journey? How has your faith journey shaped your investing journey, especially working with debt and credit?
So I do have something for that. One of the things that I teach about in my business, I have one of the core principles is faith. I believe everybody has eternal value, and that we should treat them accordingly. I do believe everybody's made by God, and that they have value. And so when I'm doing my business, I think about that, and I'm thinking, for me as a property manager owning this property management company, I'm looking at my tenants that are in this mobile home park that are paying $600. And then I have clients literally paying $5,000 a month. They do not have less value paying 600 versus the guy that's paying 5,000. And that I look at them not as a transaction. I look at their value and their worth. And so I built this model that values both the tenant and the owner. Might have different responsibilities to each of them, but I value them equally because they have eternal value. And then that works into the properties I build. I'm not trying to do them the cheapest way possible to extract the absolute most amount of money out of my investment properties. I'm looking at it saying, I want to build something of quality. Quality is just as important as quantity. I want to build quality, managing that money of the build, but something I can be proud of and that the tenant can be proud of. That's one of the big principles I use, is that each person has eternal value.
All right, I'm trying to share everyone's channels also, so bear with me. But I put Nick, Lead Prejado, Lindsay, Jack, Jeff. So if you haven't, go please subscribe. Me and Nick are also trying to work on a possibly scheduled Saturday. Where we're going to try to do like a weekly wrap up on Bitcoin, kind of how Zuber does his weekly wrap up with TY. So me and Nick are on the works with that. But Lynn says, why is Alex Hormozy controversial? Do you have any thoughts on that, Brandon?
I don't listen to him or follow him a lot. So I've heard all of this group talking about him a lot. So I just don't know.
I think from my take is just they're very much pushing that, you're going to go 100 miles per hour in a sense in your goal or your focus, right? So it's almost like you're shutting everyone out. You have no friends. You're heading down this path, and you You just suck it up for the 2 years or whatnot. And I think it, it's a good message. You want people working hard, you want people taking action, but at the same time, it's kind of like challenging for people that are maybe our age, in a sense, to just completely flip the script that way, right? So I think for the younger generation, it's very attractive, right? Where they don't maybe have as much responsibilities yet, so it really relates to them.
Well, they
Uh,
think about when you're on your deathbed, and I mean this for everybody. Think about this when you're on your deathbed. Are you going to sit there and say, "Man, I wished I'd have worked harder"? You're not. You're going to talk about relationships. You're going to think about relationships. It's not, "I wished I worked harder. I wished I made more." You're going to think about relationships. And so I think everything we as humans, our human nature is we want to do things to the extreme. I think the same thing with credit. Credit is a two-edged sword, and people tend, you say, okay, credit's good. Well, not always for every situation is it good. And is it to then, if it's good, should I use it to the extreme? Well, no, that's not good either. Everybody wants to take an attribute or an action and take it to the extreme where it becomes something bad. And that's what I feel about debt. Debt is a good thing. And this is referencing back to part of that question. I taught Dave Ramsey's material for several years in our church. I did teach that material, but I began to realize he had a very myopic opinion of debt and didn't understand the dangers in the economy of you can't get ahead, you can't save fast enough, but how to use debt appropriately, because just because he used it inappropriately, using short-term debt for a long-term asset, just because he was foolish in it does not mean everybody else is. He went the other extreme and changed the pendulum the other way. People that go, you should do full 100% leverage all the time and maximize, I think is wrong. Same thing of using nothing is wrong. And people tend to go extremes, and that's where the problems happen on any action.
Sorry, I was just saying aloha to your buddy Finn,
Yeah.
who tuned in from your page. But I think part of it also too, and I think people are putting it in the chat in the lower part. I'll get to it. But it's part of it too is I think he pushes you, or his message is go hard, go fast, but almost in a sense where not to chase money. And it's kind of almost like join my program, join this, and it's almost like we're gonna go hard, but you're gonna stay in my course or program even longer, right? Because you're not chasing money, you're chasing impact. So I see that as
You
a
need to take my course 5 times and pay for it 5 times because you need it.
yeah,
Well,
exactly.
I tell that to my kids, and realizing, every one of us has an angle. We've got a stick, if you want to say it. We've got an angle. We've got a purpose for what we're saying or what we're doing. There's nothing wrong with that. But what we need to do is understand what everybody's angle is. And then when you understand it, you know your appropriate behavior. You know how to guard yourself, and you know how to join in when you say, you know what, I believe in what they're doing. I know what their angle is, but I want to be a part of it. I believe in that. There's nothing wrong. You just got to know that everybody has an angle, and you just got to know what it is.
Yeah, so Nick from Lead Pray Huddle says I went on a week-long cruise recently and did no cell phone the whole week. I haven't done that in 10 years. I felt so refreshed after it with no news or social media access. I felt healed. Yeah, and I think for those of you that may have been to year one and or follow Coach Carson on YouTube, but Coach Carson spoke at the event in February, or when it's in February, year one. But that was kind of his thing, almost like taking mini retirements in a sense, or mini sabbaticals, right? And I think he spent maybe a year and a half in another country, so he kind of
Yeah.
picked up with his kids. And it's a great experience. And I'm not sure if those know Big Cody Evers, who's also a big part of the one rental at a time community, also kind of did that recently. Kind of took like a mini retirement. He has found another job recently or accepted another position, but yeah, he took maybe 6 9 months off in a sense, and yeah, it's I think sometimes it's needed, right? And you kind of step away from things, step away from the noise. So if people don't know, also Dion is going on a cruise, I believe, end of June it was. And for those of you tune into his live today, I'm sure he'll have more information or who to connect with to if you want to partake in that cruise that Dion's going to be on.
Yeah, I saw that just the other day.
Let's see, where was hey, Kenny's here, Casey's here, Jen's here. Good morning. Yeah, Nick says also lead Hormozy has no kids. Yeah, that definitely changes things. And on that point, has no kids, but maybe I know we've touched on it before, and I don't know if maybe I'm getting excited because Landman 2 season 2 is coming out. So I saw the trailer for that, but you kind of talked about there was a clip that you shared before, and it was from season 1 with
Yeah.
Jerry Jones, and there was someone in the hospital, right? And he was talking about kids, family. But do you kind of remember what that part
Yeah,
you
I
shared?
do remember that. And he was talking about doing life with his kids in the business and how that's so meaningful. And I kind of understand that. I've brought some of my kids into doing a few things within the business. They're still young. I mean, my youngest is in 8th grade, but we have them doing things in the business. I work with my wife. We've worked together. We met at our first career, and I've told several people I came from the banking business. Um, we met in banking, and we've worked together now 23 years, and I'm used to working with family because I grew up with that. My parents had a business with the family, and we had, my aunts and my uncles, my dad, my grandfather. So I was used to that, working with the family business. And there's good things to it, and then there's things that are not as good, because then you get together even at Thanksgiving and you talk business. And I remember that within the family. But I grew up in an entrepreneur family, and so I'm kind of used to. I want to bring my kids into that. They're seeing the businesses. My middle daughter has opened up several businesses. She has a little very entrepreneurial. She is making those little car freshies and has set up in a couple of those fall festivals. And then she has her own Facebook page where she sells car freshies. And she did this all on her own. I'm teaching her those things. She's got a little journal where she's tracking her expenses and figured out what she should charge for car freshies. These are little things. She wants to come into our business someday. And so I'm used to that. And what Jerry Jones talked about resonated with me and my experience in life. And really what he's talking about is it's all about the relationships with family.
Harrison Trade Better 99 says Alex Hormozy reminds me of Jerry Rice. He works so hard to the point that you win, but you don't enjoy it when you're at the top. Yeah, I definitely see that with um, a lot of people that have reached the pinnacle, right? I mean, sometimes that's the trade-off though, right? And you see it in those that are great to some extent, right? I think a lot of them um, they don't enjoy it to some extent, right? It's the grind that they are enjoying, and when they reach
Well,
it,
when you get to the top, it's a letdown. You've worked so hard. When you get there, it is. I'll tell a story. So this is just my wiring, and Mark, you and I have talked about it. I've been wired, and I don't do things unless I think I can become one of the best. And I don't look at being one of the best locally. I want to be one of the best in the country, or I don't do it. It has gotten me in trouble, but it's been rewarding and driven me. And I think Alex sounds like he has some of that too. When I got into real estate, I was in real estate sales in 2010. I joined Keller Williams, and I went straight to the owner of the brokerage, and I said, I want to know, what does it take to be the national rookie of the year? I need to know that number. And of course, she's looking at me. She doesn't know me from Adam, and I'm like, no, I'm serious. What is the national rookie of the year? What do I need to do? And of course, she gave me the number from the previous year. I said, listen, if I'm not the National Rookie of the Year or at least make six figures, I'm quitting real estate. Now, this is 2010. Think about the economy in 2010. I said, no, I believe I'm worth it. If I'm not going to be one of the best in the country, I'm not interested in doing it. And that was my wiring. And I ended up being number two because the way they calculated it, that person could be in a whole lot longer. I'd only been in the business for 10 months. She had been in the business for 16 months. And because she had that pipeline rolling, she beat me. Well, I was so competitive. I said something to her I shouldn't have, and I won't repeat what I said, but I told her she only won it because I wasn't in a couple of extra months. But I got into real estate and grew the team to one of the largest teams in the country, being within the top 1,000 in the entire country. We were selling 250 properties a year. I now translate that. Now, when I got to that pinnacle, once you finally hit there, it kind of was deflating. But I remember working so hard at that time, and I had a lot more energy. I was younger. There was times I didn't know what day it was. And I literally did not know what day it was. I was working so hard. And it took some of that sacrifice to get there. But then the same thing now with this build to rent on the small scale, I'm trying to make it one of the best models for me to maximizing the returns. It does drive you, and you have that extra drive. It drives you to excellence, but then you have to then keep it in balance. My kids were really young then, and I missed a lot of things when they were young. And now I'm realizing I need to find that right balance of drive, but also having the relationships and building the relationships with my kids and my wife. And I'm trying to figure out the balance with that. There's a little sermon there.
No, but for people that don't know, I know we kind of touched on it last week, but there is people that maybe weren't on last week's live stream. But people don't know that Brannon was like a competitive Olympic level athlete, right?
Not quite Olympic
All
level,
right, all
probably
right.
the next level below that. But I was on Team USA's world triathlon team for 3 years and traveled all over the world competing in triathlon.
And then I found out another nugget about what were you, some tennis star or
Yeah, I played college tennis, paid for my college, and was nationally ranked in tennis, and then broke my ankle my senior year. And that's why I got into triathlon. I felt like I had some unfinished athletic business.
so when you see him in Vegas, go get his autograph.
No, no.
He's speaking what, day two, day one,
Day two,
day
I
two.
think at 8 a.m. or that for early in the morning, day two.
All right, and also you are, if people don't know, Brannon is trying to put together a Friday morning coffee meetup in Vegas. So not only will we have the Wednesday and Thursday Denny's meetups,
We'll have
or midnight, yeah.
The Friday morning breakfast at Denny's. There's a Denny's, but beside the Venetian Hotel. That's
So,
the one.
so you go straight from midnight at Denny's to the morning breakfast at Denny's. That's the plan,
No,
right?
not
No?
me.
Fun fact about me. There's no fun facts about me, Lynn. I am, well, I mean, I know we try to talk real estate, financial literacy and whatnot, but since it's not a fun fact, but maybe Brannon and all his wisdom. So I'll throw this out there then. So yesterday, I found out my son was being a bully in school, him and some other kids, doing some stuff that I had to talk to him. And these are all kids on the same football team. So part of that pisses me off that now I got to go deal with that. But part of me was like reflecting, like, is he seeing how I behave, how I make trouble to everyone? And is he acting in some ways how I act in a sense? So now I'm questioning, man, do I gotta tone down my troublemakerness and be aware of what he's noticing? So that's the dilemma that I slept on last night, and just thinking about that. So in your years of wisdom more than me, what would you say on that?
No, I think you need to address that behavior, but you should be because I believe our kids, to some degree, are a mirror of who we are because they live in our house and that we are creating their environment. But then I also believe they have to make. Sometimes they're making some of their own choices, even despite how we raised them. So it's a little bit of both. I do think you'd address that. I think we can all remember when somebody's bullied us and understand what that does to them. So you're trying to get them to see their behavior. What does it do to the other person and how do they feel? And would they want to feel that? And if you can get them to empathize, which I think is a good attribute of anybody, somebody that has empathy seems to do well and makes better decisions. If you can get him to work on his empathy and understanding what other people could feel on your behavior, on your actions. I don't know. That's
All
just what I
right.
was thinking.
I'm gonna have to delete some of these comments in here. People calling him mini me and apple don't fall far from that tree. Well, part of what upset me though was, so we spoke with him, and he was, so he was I guess you could say maybe he got bullied a couple years ago in a different grade level. So his excuses was, well, it happened to me, so it's like okay, right? So uh yeah, that was upsetting and pissing me off that he was making excuses about it.
Yeah.
So um
Go
yeah.
back to let's go back to our first premise. One of the things I wanted to make sure, and I'd love to hear comments. What I found in life is that when money comes quick and fast, it seems to leave the same way. And that when money is earned slower and it builds up over time, it tends to stay with you. That's just what I've generally found is the quicker it comes, usually the quicker it can leave. But if I've earned it over time, slower, disciplined, I tend to be able to hold on to it a lot longer or forever. And
Yeah.
people that, the poor that want it quick, it's playing into that. I feel like that illustration of that lottery winner. It came quick and he lost it quick.
Yeah, and I think we definitely touched on, a lot of athletes. You see that they get a big salary or signing bonus, and they go buy the flashy cars and maybe the new home. And I think in their heads, a lot of times they think they're making the smart decision, right? They're buying a home, paying it off. They're not going to have a mortgage, but then they don't realize how much property taxes are. They don't realize how much insurance is, how much the yard, the landscaping, the maintenance, right? And maybe their career ends in 5, 6 years, and then they have this huge bills every month, every year, and they don't realize that. So I think a lot of it, and you do see them talking about more. There's more like financial education to a lot of these athletes when they do sign with these pro teams, right? They're trying to help them because a lot of the players that have before them retired are like, man, we got to help these guys out because a lot of guys, after so many years after they retire, they're broke already, right?
Yeah.
But this person also commented on that Hormozy tweet or post. But I think that was kind of just what you touched on. But so this one point that'll upset poor people. They know they lack resources, but instead of them to offer help with what they can get better at and collaborate, they'd rather create a weak foundation just because they want a fast means of income. It never lasts, and then they conclude on how things don't work out for them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good statement. Because what you learn over time of how to build resources is part of the tool of how to keep the resources. The disciplines that you learn in that building process are tools you're going to be using to keep it in your hands. I know Dion, if he's still here, I think of scripture. I know some of y'all will love that and some of y'all cringe, but that's just who I am. Of the house, let's just take your financial house. If it's built slowly, it's built on a rock and it will stand. But if it's built poorly or quickly and then it's on this sand foundation, it'll easily crumble. And I do think of those principles as building the foundation on a rock. And then I'm trying to teach my kids how you build that foundation on a rock.
Well, talking about kids, Lynn does say, I believe kids build more rounded personalities when they are exposed to
Mhm.
volunteering, Big Brother programs, etc., where they are exposed to the less fortunate. Yep.
Yeah, we do it. My kids all volunteer on doing some. Now it's required in our school. They have to have by the time they graduate. I think it's over 100 volunteer hours in their high school career. They also encourage mentoring. Each of the seniors have a kindergartner as a kid that they pour into. My daughter, who just graduated last year, went to her kinder's birthday and bought her presents. Her kinder, she still speaks to and pours into. And my middle daughter's doing the same thing with her kinder. It's building, you think about, I know it's hitting a trigger on me, but I've had good mentors in my life. I'm mentoring others even now. I'm mentoring this Gen Z group and having time and spending time with them. But it's that principle of fresh water. If you have somebody pouring into you and it doesn't go anywhere, eventually what happens to that water? It becomes stagnant. The only way you keep fresh water is that you keep it going and keep it flowing. So as somebody has poured into you, and a lot of this group, we're all givers. As a lot of us are pouring into each other, the way we keep it as fresh water is we begin pouring it into others. And I've done that. I've had that poured into me. I'm continuing to do that. And my kids, I'm teaching my kids to do the same thing.
All right, there's a lot of chatter about me being a bully, so I want to. Hey, Dylan's here. What's up, man? So me and Dylan tested it out this morning. So those of you that have YouTube channels are trying to build your social media, there is a new feature in YouTube, a collaboration feature. So when you do put out videos or reels, you should try to invite the other person that's on your kind of video or reel to collaborate. So that way both people's channels will show up on the video. Um, yeah, another part of that, like I said, sorry, I'm going back to this other topic.
Sure.
But of course, everyone thinks their child is the angel, right? But I would definitely say that two other kids that were involved are a bunch of punks. Um, so I'm trying to figure out too now, like they're all on the same team. So
But we go to what we talk about, Mark. You know, uh, Michael talks about, you want to see where you're going to be? Who are your five closest friends? You could use that illustration. Who you hang around with is who you become. And everybody associates it that way. We look at other people who they hang around with. We generally associate, well, they must be like them.
well, see, but then now you would say those are the two better kids on the team. Now, do I have to take my kid off the team? So yeah, I'm trying to figure out. I don't
You
know.
have to do what's right, regardless of the
I'm
consequence.
gonna bench those two kids. I'm gonna. So I'm only been helping out, but I'm gonna tell the head coach guy that these kids are um, dicking around too much, and they're gonna sit if they keep this shit up. So yeah, I'm gonna have to, I think, take over coaching more instead of just helping out. But that's my plan right now. But let's see what other questions we got here. Yeah, Jay, Frank, I'm glad you're feeling better. He got his humor back. He says he thinks Jen's kids can take me. Uh, let's see. Hold on. He is very. Jen says, I keep that Alex Hermosi, but know nothing about him. Oh, is he worth following? Trying to stay focused and not join the next hot mentorship. Yeah, Jen is. I think I talked about it yesterday. I think Jen and Kenny are definitely uh, the couple that is just feeling they're falling behind to some extent, but I think they just putting a lot of pressure on themselves. So you're seeing a lot of people in the community doing a lot of cool things and making moves, and I think Jen and Kenny are way ahead of where they think they are, but they just are putting them, they're feeling like other people are doing more, and they're just trying to find other answers. And Jen's always looking for the next hot thing, and we're like you're talking about, we're trying to teach or patience and long-term vision and kind
Yes.
of stick to the plan, right? Oh, Troy has a question. Hey, morning, Troy. He says, so I have a question for Brandon. It's more at the family level. So my boys, why? What are you like? That you're like the grandpa. I think everybody's looking at you like
I'm
the
I'm I'm not
but
that.
so my boys are being caught up by streamers that have no clue about business. So they shame businesses for being greedy because they increase their cost of product and membership.
Hmm.
All right, Gramps, what you got for this one?
Man, I don't know.
Damn, I'm being a bully again.
Yeah, I don't know. Then it sounds like they're listening to people that hate capitalism or trying to promote it. Well, trying to promote greed. They've got to get better streamers. You got to find somebody that's relevant. Um, I think Cody Sanchez has some good stuff out there. There's times I like what she says, and there's times I see it a little different. That's what I'm trying to bring some of that to on my channel. I haven't really talked business stuff, mainly just real estate. But yeah, they've got to listen to some better business people. Old old Kiyosaki stuff is good. Um, Ken McElroy stuff. He's more of a business, real estate and business. I don't have any other. I'm trying to think of any other business people. I don't have it right now. I don't know.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned Cody Sanchez. So I enjoy her content. However, there's a lot of people on X going after her right now.
I didn't
So
even know that because you just got me on X for the first time yesterday. I'm confessing I've never been
Well,
on X.
so a lot of people. There's been a lot of things. People are questioning her timeline of events that she's been putting out there. Like whatever
Oh,
she's done, this, and people have been matching it up. Like, oh, you're full of shit or whatever. Anyways, or even deals that she's talked about. They've run the numbers and like, oh, this is horrible deal kind of. So, anyways. Like I said, I enjoy her content, but there's a lot of people on X now that are kind of questioning and putting her in that grifter or grifter
yeah, I just
phase, I
don't know
guess.
enough to say. I
Um,
know Cody put out one. It was less than 2 weeks ago, just talking about money and how to understand money and the what government schools teach or don't teach. And it was excellent. I actually sent it out to a whole bunch of Gen Zers and to I know y'all are gonna think this is hate me or not. We have breakfast, a bunch of us men on Friday mornings. I sent it out to the man club group and told them that y'all need to send this to your kids because we're all similar age. But it was an excellent video by Cody.
did you say No Ma'am Club?
No,
Like
I
Al
did not.
Bundy,
Man club.
the No Ma'am shirt?
Yeah,
Uh, hey, I see Curtis is tuning in, and yes, I'll give Curtis props. I can't believe I lost to his fantasy football team this week. He had like three injured players, and uh, yeah, it's very painful to lose to him, especially him. That's like one of the most painful people to lose to.
Chiefs
Uh,
looked good last night.
oh, Troy's gonna jump in now that you said that. They probably paid their refs off. But let's see. Yeah, Curtis does say teammate relationships are very interesting, Pee-wee level all the way up. And Jen is actually saying no. She wants to start a parenting podcast. Because I have the same questions and issues. Yeah, Jen, you should
That's a
definitely
good one.
start
Yeah.
one. Yeah. Jen says, I agree with Brannon. I've heard after 10 years old, it's about friends they hang out with. Yeah.
Mhm. And I've
Um,
been saying that to my kids since they were extremely young. I was already planting that seed. And then when we saw a friend that had questionable behaviors, we would talk to them about it and just ask them, is that the kind of person you want to be? And get them to think inward, is that who I want to be? And I've watched, I mean, there's still periodically, heck, we are too. We're trying to choose our friends all the time, who we want to be around. But I was starting that before they were even 10. But I agree, at 10 and up, it gets even more powerful of their behaviors, of who they hang around is who they're going to end up emulating.
all right. Our next goal is to get Jen to start her parenting
There
podcast.
you
We'll
go.
get that off the ground. Uh, oh, that's why Chester tuned in today because the Ravens beat the Bears. Yes, I can't wear my Bears. I can't believe we lost to your backup quarterback. God. But Andy is also saying, yeah, my son didn't like me as a coach. I was O-line and he was running backs. Backs were complaining, not blocking, so we told the line not to block. The backs didn't like outcome. We can all grow from each other, definitely. Yeah, Andy also says football can definitely teach life lessons, and hopefully you'll find a way to relate the situation to your son. Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't comment about me being a bully, Andy. But yeah, this about an hour. I don't know how much more time you got. Anything
I
else you
think
wanna?
I'm pretty done. The door has been opening quite a bit. We got a lot of our renters are starting to make their payments. It's already last week of the month, and payments are starting to come in.
Well, you know what? Talk on that maybe a few minutes, real quick. What are you seeing in your market, rents, vacancies? Because I think a lot of people in the school community have been posting about maybe vacancies that they've
We are.
have coming up. Okay.
So, just so that everybody understands, we manage a lot of properties in Dallas Fort Worth area, the entire Dallas Fort Worth area. Right now, about almost 250 doors. And so on Mondays, I do the reports with the team. I'm looking at delinquencies. I'm looking at vacancies. Our vacancies are getting better. I noticed just in the last couple of weeks, a lot more activity. We have a lot more applications coming in. And literally just in the last 2 weeks, I've noticed not a massive uptick, but a little bit of increased activity in the last couple of weeks. Our delinquencies on 250 doors are really good. Now, that comes somewhat as quality control of who we rent to, but on 250 doors, we don't have literally one single person that's 30 days late on 250 doors at the moment. One of the things I can share, we met with the team. The experience, I hired somebody to be the experience. She's 20 years in the business. And she and I were sitting down with the team. We have seen a lot of fraudulent applications. We were showing them the little subtleties, and it's extremely subtle. You have to be very detail oriented because a bad tenant costs a whole lot more than vacancy. And so we were looking at their pay stubs. Well, they were ADP pay stubs. Then we began. Hold on, let me see if I can find it here.
Well, while Brandon is looking for that, Chester does say whose markets are starting to see softening rent. So those of you that are still here, put in the chat if you're seeing softening rents in your area and what area it is or what market it is.
Yeah, so we are seeing softening. Our rents down in DFW 5 to 7%. Even on our single families are down a little bit. We're advising our current owners that do not raise the rents. You would rather have the people stay right now. The plan of a few years ago, let them move on. We can raise the rent. That's not here, at least not in Dallas Fort Worth area. We're telling them keep it the same at where it's at and keep that renter there, because if it goes vacant, it's taken a lot longer, almost a whole entire month longer to get it rented. But back to the story. So this person says they're moving to DFW. They're up in Lubbock area, which is in the Panhandle. And of course, my we're looking at them. We're vetting everything on that application. Unfortunately, that's the way. You have to be almost suspicious. They have to prove out everything they say on the application. And we looked up the company they said they worked for and where they were up in Lubbock. Well, guess what? That company's not there in Lubbock. We looked it up. We looked at the offer letter. Some things on that offer letter did not look right, down to some signature stuff. And just some of we were looking, could almost see if things were cut and paste on the document. The logo was not right. Now we looked at the pay stubs. The voucher number on every pay stub was the exact same number. It's the little details, and we were showing the team all the little things down to who they said to get in touch with for the offer letter. We send this email, and the response back did not seem like a corporate response. So we contacted the company on our own and found our own verification person with the company on their website, and we got a completely different response. They didn't know who this person was.
Wow.
So, we've been seeing some of that vetting. We've had some fraudulent applications recently, so we're showing our team. But that's just what we do, and that's the story I tell some of the owners. It's, yes, we want tenants, but we want to vet them well, because we'd rather have a few extra days of vacancy than having a really bad tenant or a professional tenant and you don't get paid. So these are some of the unwritten stories you don't see on the front end where we're doing our due diligence. But we're seeing some softening in the market. Of course, Dallas-Fort Worth, we've had 50,000 new units come online in the last year and a half. The only saving grace for Dallas-Fort Worth, the last number I saw, we're growing. Dallas-Fort Worth is growing by 487 people a day. That's over almost 100,000. Our area in Johnson County, we've grown by 32% increased population in the last 10 years. So that's saving us.
All right. So before you get to Troy's question, though, so someone did post something. I think it might have been Lance Lambert on X, showing kind of rents going down in Texas.
Yes,
and
they are.
and someone did comment, though, so part of it also related to amount of building, new construction coming up, and someone said, looks like Texas has gone overboard in building, and that's why rents are coming down. But I'm
we're
not
still
sure.
growing.
Well, so that's my point, right? So would you say rents maybe have gone up 20-30% in the past 4 or 5
I would
years?
say,
So
yeah,
even though it's come
30%.
down,
Yeah,
so even though it's come
30% in the
down,
last 4 years, and it's coming down about 5 or 6%.
So Troy does say, Brannon, how do you view rents fall, winter versus spring, summer for average rents when basing your marketing rent for units?
We do see a lower rent price in the winter than we do in the spring, summer. Our spring season starts 1st of March into February, and that's when rents start to go up. And I'd say it's marginal. The difference between wintertime pricing versus spring and summer, just a few percent, because guess what? Everybody else is doing the same thing. All their rents are coming renewed, and you see more competition in the spring and summer. But as a general number, it is just a few points less percentage in the winter. Our worst time is January, basically around Thanksgiving all the way through January is our low point.
All right. I think that's a great way to wrap it up. Thanks for everyone tuning in again. I will be here tomorrow, same time. Tomorrow's going to be a fun one. I'm going to have, Joel Farrell, Lending for Entrepreneurs, and Lauren Elaine have committed to Wednesdays for me. Lauren is in Idaho, and she's working on a boutique hotel now. She sold her equestrian farm in Florida, and she's building out a boutique hotel that will have a bowling alley in the back. So that's what she's working on. And we're going to try and see if we can help with her social media branding and come up with a name. And also going to have a new guest tomorrow, Emily Lopez, who is You Can DIY on YouTube. So I'm going to be doing a chat with her also today. So go check her out. She is, yeah, I didn't even know she was a realtor, but she's been in real estate for about 18, 20 years. She's a lot of DIY stuff on YouTube. But go check her out. But me and Brannon will be here on next Tuesday also.
I will say, giving credit to all of the Gen Xers and young boomers, they'll remember this from the 60s and 70s. It's going to be the same bat time at the same bat channel. See us next week.
All right, Gramps. Thanks. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning